Your website is the mousetrap. Your content is the cheese. Welcome to Content Matters with Barry Feldman and Andy Crestodina.
You're writing, but the process of writing involves a lot of tools. It involves a system. It involves often a team. So getting the stuff together, coming up with the process, making it a little factory, staying consistent, getting on top of it, how do you do all that? What do you need to do that?
Yeah. Seems like something we should talk about. I mean, there's so many different flavors of this because there's so many different styles. You know, do you have a geographically dispersed team? Do you have a small team? Do you have a one-person team? Do you have a process that goes, through the ranks? I've written for quite a few blog posts in my time, and I've seen some that have like 8 players touch it, right, before it goes live, right? And so some of these people have worked out some great processes, and I guess you and I have touched our processes inside and out with clients, and so hopefully we can deliver some good ideas.
Yeah, and there's a lot of our listeners are going to be the one-man show, one-woman show. Some of them will be part of teams with a big editorial workflow process and some tools in place. So it'll range, but hopefully we've got something in here for everybody. We're going to talk a lot about our processes because that's obviously what we're closest to. And people seem very interested online and offline when we start to mention these things. But what we're not going to talk about is willpower, motivation, time of day, where are you sitting, do you use focused music, like the writing, like the Pomodoro technique, and I do 25 minutes and then I take 5 minutes off. None of that. This is about the tools and the process for content marketing, content creation, workflow. And I'll jump in with some idea collection things because this is a key component. This is a key tool. And almost everybody out there has some kind of idea collection tool. A lot of people, it's Evernote. A lot of people, it's paper. I know people who carry a Moleskine with them. I know people who have a swipe file. And when they see good stuff, they put it into like a Word doc or a spreadsheet. My approach is to use Google Docs. The downside is I don't really get active on there on mobile. So if I'm out somewhere and I have an idea, I need to hold on to that for a minute. A lot of what I see and what I read and I get ideas and I'm talking to someone, I'm in the meeting, and then I go to put that idea down. I have a Google Docs spreadsheet, and there's a tab there, and one of the tabs is for the topics, it's just called. But these are drafts. These are partial ideas. And it's just a place where I can just dump stuff. So, for example, just today I put an idea in there, and it was about usability. What is the true story in that person's life that led them to this page? Fascinating topic. And I put that on that spreadsheet tab. That's my approach for idea collection. Barry, what do you do?
Yeah, that's a good approach. I mean, when you say you use Google Docs, do you mean spreadsheets?
Yeah, Google Sheets. I've got a Google Sheets that has several tabs. We'll talk about that, but one of them is just topics.
Yeah, that's what I thought because, it's probably not a big secret that I contribute to the Orbit blog too. So we've shared documents like that. And so your list is long and organized and I like it. You can sort every which way. So it's a good idea. I'm not much of a spreadsheet guy, but I'm not sharing it with anybody either, usually. I am an example of the one-man show. Mm-hmm. So I get ideas. I've been a creative and writer and all sorts of things, now an author and so forth for a long time. And so I get ideas everywhere. My previous cell phone was the Samsung Galaxy Note because it had a stylus. Mm-hmm. I've moved on into the Apple world to get along with my other machines in my family. So I have an iPod now, but an iPhone now. But it's probably first and foremost my idea collection because I get ideas when I'm walking the dog, and I'm doing that multiple times every day. And so I open it up and I either speak or type into the notes thing. It's just a first step, but I know it's going to be there when I come back to it. When I graduate to all right, that idea now needs to have a headline. I'm often doing keyword research. I'm often using, the free keyword planner tool. And when I make some progress with that, if I like the headline and I got a keyword string that I don't want to forget, I might go as far, and I often do go as far as putting in a WordPress. So it's just a standby in a draft mode on WordPress. Yeah. More often than not, I am putting it on Dropbox. I'm like the remote storage guy, and I have a paid account for Google and a very plentiful unpaid account for Dropbox. And so in my mind, I'm separating two ways. If it's on Dropbox, it's for me, my idea repository or one of them. And if it's on Google, it's for me and other people. Because it's so easy to share. And then you mentioned Evernote. I use Evernote. I usually use Evernote for client ideas.
Okay.
And you mentioned Trello before. You didn't mention it since we were on the mic, but
Yep. Dominant form for lists, just collection, super simple, great on mobile. Just type it in. It just adds as an item in Trello.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever it is, I think the moral of the story is, archive your ideas to the degree that they won't slip away. Paper's probably a little dangerous, but whatever. If you have a bulletin board or you have a place where you obviously keep your sticky notes, put enough of the idea down such that when you come back to it later, you still understand what you were talking about.
Yeah, and you called it a headline. It's almost always a headline or just a topic or a juicy little nugget. So next we're gonna plant that seed, and we're gonna have to have a place to put in the mini outline or the first paragraph or the next step in that idea. Now, psychologically, I'm always trying to reduce the barrier between the blank page and having something. So I have a very low barrier where I'll just start writing on something. But to do that, I actually use a template, and I'm going to share it with everyone who's ever wants it. I have a content marketing template that I use. And at the top, it's got a lot of stuff about your target phrase and who you're going to collaborate with and related phrases and what the email subject line is and some tweets you might use. But I'm going to skip down past all that to just grab this Google Doc, copy it, throw some outline points in there, some bullet points, throw some research or some tidbit I found somewhere or some great quote. And then I'm going to take, and I might close it after 3 minutes of just collecting more of this. It's not going to fit in my spreadsheet anymore. But when I do, I copy and paste the link of this Google Doc template, right? This is not the template anymore. It's the beginning of the article back into my spreadsheet of topics. And that's why, and you've seen this, in that tab, I have like 65 different partially written articles on the left of the headlines, and the next column is the link to the Google Doc. I can put everything in there. I have posts that I've been working on, just adding to for years. I have a post, I may publish it soon. It's about like 100 ideas to be a good presenter. Well, that's just a place I've been throwing ideas in forever. So that point there is to also just be able to have a place where you can quickly begin to capture more of the idea, write that intro paragraph, write that outline, capture that quote, add that statistic or whatever it is to the stuff that's going to turn into the article later.
Yeah. 100's enough, by the way. Go ahead and publish that one down.
It's going to be a big one. I think it's like 70 or 80 right now.
No, that's enough, too. Somebody shared one with me today that was 101, and they wanted me to share it because I'm in it, but I was like 99th. I'm like,
this is not a roundup. These are actual specific tips for being a good presenter.
Yeah. It sounds like a juicy one. Let's see. I love your template. I've shared your template. I've used your template. Anybody who's listening and doesn't download your template, shame on you. Get Andy's template, Orbit's template. It's a reminder to not forget the important stuff. Do we have a featured image? Did we figure out keywords? Did we add that shareable click to tweet or whatever it is that we want to share? Does it have images at a certain frequency? Andy likes to make it such that you can't scroll for long, or any scroll depth, I guess you call it, where you see images. So it's like you can't really make a poorly structured blog post if you follow your template. I don't have that. I've written thousands of blog posts. It sort of exists between my ears. But I if I needed one, I would use yours. I certainly, when I'm guest posting, use existing posts as sort of indicators of what they expect. Everybody has slightly different ways they go about things, and I've seen a fair share of templates. I think yours is the best. And then Yoast is a bit of a template for me too, because at the bottom of the WordPress entry is Yoast reminding you with yellow, green, and red lights what you did and what you didn't do, at least in terms of optimization. So yeah, I guess I've hit publish a few times too soon and go, whoops, I forgot to do a feature.
Well, if anyone who's looking for it, if you search for web content template, you'll find it ranks in Google, the Orbit Media post, and at the top of that post, there's a link to the Google Doc, which you can then just make a copy of and adapt that template to whatever your editorial standards are. So now we've got the thing working. We're working on it. We're hammering on it and adding love and attention and energy and sweat and blood. And this becomes a great post. And now it's going to move down this production process, and it's going to go from being a draft article into editing. Now there are lots of tools, and we should mention some because there are lots of good ones out there. Some people use Gather Content. You guys may know Brock and Divi HQ. Divi's another great tool for content marketing workflow. Recommended. Give it a try. There's a trial, I believe. PowerPost, our mutual friend, Paul has got building a monster tool with 1 million features. It's got buffer type features in it. So these workflow management tools are going to help you move this thing from the writer to the editor. And in our case at Orbit, it goes to a designer. So we have to have these graphics made and these charts redrawn. And so there's 3 or 4 people touching these. Barry, you and I both have friends at Social Media Examiner. They have like half a dozen editors that touch each thing. So whether or not you're the one-person show or you've got a multiple-person team, this thing's going to go into editing, which is really when the mindset changes. And anyone who wants to is interested in editing, we've got another cast on that. Go back and listen to the Content Matter episode about editing. Barry's top tip from that, I can't forget. I keep thinking about it as I'm working. Don't edit while you're writing. There's 2 different mindsets, 2 different ways to think about this. People who try to do editing while they are writing really struggle to get things done. Okay.
Hey, yeah, you said we weren't going to talk about writing today, but yeah, I wish that I actually took that advice that I give out so often, but I think it's for people that are sort of paralyzed by a blank page, because I do indeed edit as I write, and don't do as I do as I say. But yeah, I think you covered that pretty well. But I think you make a call about how to collaborate in terms of the approval processes and the revisions and the addition of SEO and so forth based on the style of team you have and where they are and the timeline. And so I think, while you can indeed kind of get away with email and shared document drive storage systems and so forth, you probably will outgrow that, and you'll probably discover that the tools that Andy mentioned are going to be more efficient. And some of these that are calendaring apps or social sharing apps are expanding, like Divi and PowerPost and some of the things you mentioned, such that they're great. Like Kapost, which is a client and a team that I'm on, and a product that you use for this. It's enterprise level for this, right? So when I'm part of their system. I'm looking at, I've done this with Contently, I've done this with ClearVoice. I'm looking at sort of at the behind the scenes while it's waiting for somebody to do the image, and then, it gets handed off next to somebody to do the headline reviews or editing or SEO and so forth. So yeah, it's a challenge that everybody has to solve in a way that works for them.
Yeah, and we can share some links to some of those tools. There's a big range out there, all different options. One other idea about collecting things and being organized about the process, I find it hard to remember what I saw that was relevant if I saw something days or weeks before. So I have a method for collecting examples as I look at marketing, because my topic is marketing. Not everyone's talking about marketing, obviously. Your audience may be looking to you for specific content topics on whatever specific industry. But whatever you're doing as you go about your day, I'd recommend that you have a quick way to grab stuff and a kind of, not a swipe file, but just like an archive. I have a folder on my desktop called Unused Images. It's basically just ideas. And if I see something that looks weird or bad or great or whatever, I take screenshots and just throw it in that folder. And I do it all the time. In that folder now, I can go back and look and oh, wow, there's that amazing thank you page I saw. Or, oh, wow, there's that horrible SEO flaw that I saw. Or, wow, there's that gorgeous little quote. So on the Mac, there's a keystroke. It's like Command-Shift-4. You just pick part of your screen and it saves it to your desktop. Or Snagit's a good tool for saving part of your whatever you're looking at. That folder is a gold mine. If this was a video podcast, I'd pull it up and you'd see all the amazing things in there that will turn into fantastic articles. But I don't worry about losing them. I have no anxiety about where I'm going to find that again. I know that just like that, I'm going to save it and I'll be able to refer back to it and drop it into posts later.
Yeah, I do something very similar. I mean, here we're talking about things that you need to see or things that you will show. And then if it's a good idea or something swipeable or something that I want to comment on or something that I want to quote, I'm a big fan of capturing URLs and pasting them into my half-baked document so I can find my way back to the source.
Yeah, I've got another column in that tab for notes, and I put things in there just like quotes or statistics or links to things that I plan to refer back to. Um, yeah, so other things that I might have on that spreadsheet, if you make one, my spreadsheet is a pinned tab in Chrome. It's called Content and Marketing. I've got a tab in there for everything I've ever written, which is quite useful because there's a link to everything I've ever written. And if I'm looking for something, I can easily go back and find it that way. I've got a tab for people that I hope to collaborate with, a tab for statistics that I may use later, a stats swipe file, quite useful. I've got a tab of podcasts. I've got a tab for roundups. I've got a tab for focus. This last one's actually worth mentioning. I'm going to reveal now how I kind of cheat at content marketing. This tab for focus I use when people say, hey, Andy, would you like to contribute a quote to this? Or would you be interested in being interviewed here? Or would you be on this webinar? What do you want to talk about? I look at this tab to see the things that I'm currently focused on promoting, especially the things that are maybe ranking in search but not ranking that high. These are things that need a little more love. These are things that would benefit from getting mentioned somewhere. So this focus tab is something where I'm tracking the rank for specific posts that might be dropping slowly in rank or might be almost ranking high. Maybe they're ranking high on page 2. And this tab I go look at whenever someone asks me to contribute to something. And it's a place to just be like, yeah, maybe let's talk about that today. And it's because otherwise I'm just randomly deciding what to talk about. Here I'm talking about things specifically that can really benefit from the boost.
Yeah, good stuff. We've talked before, I don't think on the show, but we've talked before about how you keep track of contributions you've made to roundups and various areas where you've been mentioned or cited, which is really, really smart as it comes back to what you just said, like tying it to content that you want to promote and get backlinks for. So yeah, everybody, don't run away crying with Cresta Dina spreadsheet envy here. You know, not everybody's quite as organized as Andy, but he's definitely got a lot of good ideas, and hopefully those can help. I love the first one the best, Andy, when you talked about keeping track of everything you've ever written. I went for about 4 years before it occurred to me that I needed one of those myself, and I laid it on my virtual assistant. That became quite an assignment. You know, I'm like, all right, I think I've written for these 35 sites. Go round them all up, because
wow.
you want to know that. You want to repurpose them. You want to, if they're on your own website, you want to update them sometimes. And most importantly, you want to link to them, right?
Sure.
I'm guilty now of like, okay, I'm looking for things to link internally, and I'm using Google to search for my own stuff.
Listly, we're going to move on in a second here, but Listly, if you ever do any guest posting, they're all over the place. And if you put them in a spreadsheet, you've got them together, but they're private. So one smart way to keep all of these contributions organized is to put them in Listly, listly.com. And now you've got a place where you can go look at them all. You know, I regret not doing more of this, but you should have a Listly list. It's public. You can embed it into your website for every podcast you've been on, for every webinar you've done, everything you've contributed on with some, all those different things, regardless of, where they were. Maybe they weren't on your site. That's a good way to organize contributions. So yeah, I guess, everyone's going to do this differently. Some people blog and put ideas directly into WordPress. Some people start with offline as paper. But it's an important topic, and basically the main takeaway here is have some structure, have a process, don't lose things. It'll lower risk of gaps. It will reduce anxiety that you might have missed something. Consider some of the tools. We'll link to them all here in the show notes. It's however you do it, be a bit more, being more structured and more persistent in your approach will give you a competitive advantage as a content marketer.
It's time for mousetraps and cheese, something we do. We run them long, so let's keep them short.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go. All right. Cheese advice about content. I do a lot of ebooks and blog posts for my blog and clients in the fashion of interviews. And so I thought I'd quickly blow through how I do that process, since this is a show about process. So I line up an interview. I might have learned about the person I want to interview through the blogosphere or Amazon or an event or what have you. And then I usually ask for 10 minutes of that person's time for a preview or pre-planning interview, so that when I do interview them, they actually are not ambushed by my questions. So I pick their brains. I might ask for their permission to ask about this or that, or for their preferences. Then I put a little cheat sheet together. I find that when people interview me, the interview goes a lot smoother when I have some idea of what they're going to ask me. And then I have an interview. And so for that interview, we usually use Zoom software like we're using now. Sometimes we use Skype, sometimes conference calling if need be. And then I have it transcribed with a dude that does good work for me that I found on Upwork. And then I edit that transcription such that my posts that are interviews are often either audio or video files at the top with a little bit of a preface and a headline and a build-up and perhaps some notes, and then a fixed-up version of the transcripts, because the transcripts are always a little imperfect. So there you go, a little miniature process for turning interviews into content.
So my turn with a mousetrap tip. Mousetrap tips are about conversion, and I have for you what I think is really the ultimate tip for conversion with content. And that is not to do content just for marketing, but to do content for sales support. If you're in a B2B business or really any company with a high consideration transaction, you've got a multiple decision maker type product or service, and you've got a long sales cycle, go look at your funnel. Look at who you're talking to in the sales context. Ask yourself what those companies have in common. What questions are those companies asking you? And now consider writing an article that answers the questions, the common questions of the companies that are already in your pipeline. Polish it, make it shine. You want this article to sparkle. You've got an image, you've got quotes, charts, testimonials, evidence, whatever you're adding to this thing. Now email it or call them and ask them if they wouldn't mind taking a look, get their feedback. Send it directly to the prospects who are already in your current pipeline. There is no content that will give you a higher ROI than something that was written specifically for the people who are currently in your pipeline. It's going to help your sales closing rate. I'm not talking about content for social media, which is a million miles away from money. I'm talking about content for the bottom of the funnel, content for below the funnel, content for the sales funnel, not just the marketing funnel. So it's an account-based marketing trick. We call it zero waste marketing because it's written specifically for these people. And it permanently breaks down those silos and walls between the sales team and the marketing team. So the ultimate mousetrap content is content written for your current prospects.
Nice. Waste bad, context good.
Wow, that was quick. So what's up next?
All right, we're going to come back and talk to you again in 2 weeks with perhaps one of the more different shows that you'll hear from Andy and I, because we're going to whine a little bit. We're going to get tough. We're going to rant on. Andy and I are both bloggers, speakers, authors, and so we're in the crosshairs of a lot of people that want a piece of us. They want links, they want guest post appearances, they want cooperation and roundups. Everybody wants something, and that's not a bad thing. Andy and I are on the other side of that coin too, asking for people to give us those things. So we're going to talk about how to do it wrong and how to do it right, because I'd say 75% or more of the people that show up in my inbox that want to have an ask from me annoy me and they get trashed.
Let's warm up those cold emails. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, partner. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
It's gonna take a little time.
You're writing, but how organized are you?
Take two.